हसन अली भाग के आ रहे हैं जो एक शानदार गेंदबाज हैं, उन्होंने बॉल दी और बहुत जबरदस्त लेंथ पे और उसने एज कर दी और कैच लिया गया, एक और विकेट गिर गई है इंडिया की, पाकिस्तान जीतने वाले हैं चैंपियंस ट्रॉफी. There were limited opportunities for British Pakistanis, British Asians in fact, unless you were willing to sort of conform to various stereotypes, which I wasn't comfortable with. So I tried to find another route for myself. You know, Allah showed me stand-up comedy. I used to think like, if Allah protect me, but if I died tomorrow, that's the thing they would play at my funeral. Like, he made this. That would be at the top of the...
How did you get into that from always wanting to be a comedian, actor, etc.? What brought about going into the
cricket
commentary lane? Yeah.
It's really interesting actually, because like I'll never forget the first time like I got this praise from Pakistani fans just for pronouncing names correctly, because like, you know, we'd heard like Fawad Alam for all these years, Fawad Alam, and like I come on and I'm like Fawad Alam, you know, and I'm saying Bismillah. Well, that's very nice.
Tastes all right?
Yeah, did you make it?
I did actually, yeah.
Did you really?
I actually
very
did.
Good.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
Welcome to Aik Cup Chai. This is a show called Aik Cup Chai Crossing Cultures, brought to you by the Independent Urdu, a podcast that looks at South Asian talent that fit into the South Asian diaspora, and we talk about culture and identity with them, amongst a load of different things. My name is Mim Sheikh and I'm joined by my co-host Ali. एक कप चाय क्रॉसिंग कल्चर्स एक पॉडकास्ट है जहाँ हम बात करते हैं लोगों से जो पाकिस्तान से हैं या साउथ एशियन डायस्पोरा से हैं, और उनकी तरफ से बातें करते हैं, उनकी स्ट्रगल्स, एम्बिशंस, पर्सनालिटीज़, उनकी तरह गपशप करते हैं चाय के साथ. Today, joining us on the show is a very talented individual, an actor, a writer, a sports commentator, a stand-up comedian, if that wasn't more labels to add to yourself. Aatif Nawaz is on the show today. How are you?
I'm very well, bro. I can clean and do some admin and secretarial work as well, so I can do various things if required. Amazing. Just reach out. Yeah. Freelance life.
Well, thank you for joining us. Show's called Aik Cup Chai. You gotta have a cup of tea.
बिल्कुल सर, ले पियेंगे. अभी तो बहुत लंबा है. अभी काफी लंबी गुफ्तगू करेंगे.
Is your mouth not dry already?
Nah, I'm alright. Yeah.
Okay.
I talk for a living. It's gonna take a lot more than that to get my mouth dry.
He's used to it.
Yeah. So obviously for people that don't know you, this might be the first time that they're hearing about you. Explain to them, what is it that you do for your work now?
Well, nowadays I'm splitting my time between doing stand-up comedy, going on tour and performing at various venues, and cricket commentary and cricket broadcasting. So, you know, I'm part of BBC's Test Match Special team, which is like an iconic 100-year-old plus program. I think the oldest cricket program in the world. I get to be one of the presenters and commentators on that, but I also do other commentary and presenting work for various outlets and things like that. So I get to work in two of my passions really, cricket and comedy, and every now and again I'll do a teeny tiny bit of acting.
It's like a dream come true, you know. Some people would look at your career and be like, that is something that you can only dream of, but you've made it kind of a reality.
You know, it's like most people don't understand half of my career. So people either know me only as a cricket person, like a cricket commentator or whatever, or they know me as a stand-up comedian, and like there's very little overlap. I don't talk about cricket in my stand-up comedy very much. I don't know how to, is the truth, right? But when I'm doing cricket, it's a very different ball game, right? Comedy, it's my show, I'm the show, whereas cricket, I'm not the show, I'm bringing you information about the show, right? So they're two very different things, but they're absolutely, as you say, a dream come true. Like, dude, they give me a pass every year in like April, which I put around my neck, which gives me access to any cricket match I want in the country. Wow. Right? I can go and sit wherever I want, usually the best seat in the house. They'll sit me down next to one of the legends of the game, somebody who I probably had a poster of on my wall growing up. And then they'll ask me for my opinion on the game. They'll bring me whatever I want to eat. They'll put me up in a really nice hotel. And they'll pay me for the privilege. Like, this is like dream idhar hota hai. Ye to usse bahut upar hai. train carriage. There were 3 English guys sitting opposite me on the carriage. They looked at me, they looked at my beard, and they looked at my bag, and they got up and walked off the carriage. I thought that's the most racist thing I've ever seen in my life.
That's what I think is a great thing, because sometimes you have an aspiration about achieving something, but what ends up happening is God takes you further and you're actually like, wow, this is way bigger than I ever even dreamt of in the beginning. But that's where you're at now. But how did you get to that position where you are now? Like, what were the sacrifices and things you had to do in order to get to this position?
But I always wanted to be a stand-up comedian, but that was really secondary. Sort of growing up, before I realized what stand-up comedy was, I wanted to be an actor. That was the dream, right? So I was always to want to be an actor. I wanted to be a cricket player. You know, very early. I think I was about 16 years old when I realized I didn't have the skill or the talent to make it as a cricketer, which is a tough realization to face, but I faced it. And then it was all about acting. Like, I wanted to be an actor. I went to drama school, like, you know, trained and learned the craft and all that kind of stuff. But at the time, you know, there were limited opportunities for British Pakistanis, British Asians, in fact, unless you were willing to sort of conform to various stereotypes, which I wasn't comfortable with. So I tried to find another route for myself. You know, Allah showed me stand-up comedy, and I fell in love with it. And, you know, it took a very long time. I always tell people I was terrible for my first 7 years of doing stand-up comedy, but I persevered, and in the 8th year I got okay. And like nowadays I like to think I'm all right, but like, you know, I never like to get too carried away.
Because I've interviewed you obviously in the past, right?
Yeah.
2016 is the year, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong.
2019.
No way.
Yeah, 2019. It was when I had a TV show,
Yes.
myself and you've got an Ali, I have an Ali as well, right? Ali official.
Everyone's got an Ali, boy.
My Ali's from Bangladesh though. But
Yeah, my Ali's from Pakistan.
There you go. So there you go. We won't get into the politics of all of that. But he, you know, we had made a TV show, and it was a big deal because it was the first Muzlamic. That's
Yeah,
right.
I remember the name.
It was a big deal at the time. It's the first time a sketch comedy show about Muslims was put on like a national broadcaster.
Was that the first time?
First time ever.
Oh, wow.
And we were very lucky. There was a lot of hype around it. There was a sketch in particular about sort of airport security that was, you know, shared and reshared, and like, you know, I mean, we like the BBC eventually told us that it did more than 400 million views on platforms that they register.
Wow.
But not, like, that doesn't count like your uncle's WhatsApp, who no doubt had it, right? Like, it went everywhere. It was incredible. Like, I used to think, like, if you know, Allah protect me, but if I died tomorrow, that's the thing they would play at my funeral. Like, he made this. That would be at the top of the obituary.
Yeah.
And then little did I know, Allah had Test Match Special around the corner for me.
And watch what's going to come around the corner from there as well. There's going to be even better
Make
things.
dua for you, bro.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you get into that, from always wanting to be a comedian, actor, etc.? What brought about going into the
Cricket
commentary lane? Yeah,
it's really interesting actually, because I think many moons ago I was approached by this online cricket commentary service, and when I say many moons I mean like 2012, and I wouldn't go on to be on Test Match Special till 2019, so it was a 7-year gap. They invited me to do some guest commentary as like a celebrity contributor, right? That's what they were thinking at the time. When I happily did it, it was fun for me, and it was just frankly nice to be called a celebrity at the time, right? I had like 1,500 Instagram followers to my name, but I went along, and then, you know, over time I think I developed a good skill set. I met a man who sort of became my mentor, Daniel Norcross, who is now part of BBC Test Match Special as well. But at the time we were literally in his house on a sofa watching a game on TV, discussing it and analysing it. But we did that for like 5 years, man, just for fun in the background. So I was always developing that skill, and at the same time, like, the big break in the BBC was like, I owe Isha Guha for life, who used to play for England, was at one stage the world #1 bowler, and now she's, you know, one of the leading broadcasters in sports. She was commissioned to do a podcast by the BBC, and they said to her, why don't you bring along a comedian to do the podcast with you? And they said to her, like, you know, we get the best names. We'll get you Ramesh Ranganathan. We'll get you Paul Chowdhury. You know, we'll get somebody, you know, like Nish Kumar. Like, there were some big names and stuff. And she said, no, actually, I know a guy, Aatif, he'll do well. And I understand that there was some resistance to this idea at first, because like, who's Aatif? We've never heard of Aatif Nawaz. Who is Aatif? Who is this guy? Like, why?
But that's no disrespect to your talents.
No, they just had no idea who I was.
Yeah,
no profile.
I've been in those situations where, why are we getting this person in where we've never heard of him?
Yeah.
But when you come and actually get the job, you're actually way better than arguably some of the other people that they may have gone for.
Well, there's pressure on you to deliver.
Yeah.
So, like, I didn't know all of this was happening. So Isha had gone out on a limb And this is why I love her to this day. And I will always I would do anything for her, right? I genuinely would. Because she went out, she did the rarest thing in this industry. And you know this, right? Very few people will stick their neck out for you and then not tell you about it so that you don't feel the pressure. So I'm talking nonsense on this podcast, like opinionated, being silly, telling jokes. I'm not giving considered cricket analysis. I mean, to be fair, that wasn't the point of the podcast. So I'm just being fun. I'm having fun. And very luckily for me, the audience enjoyed it. And the other people at BBC Cricket were like, okay, this guy's interesting. Like, what's this deal? How much does he know? And what can we, And they gave me a shot at doing the Big Bash, the Australian T20 tournament, because it's on at weird hours of the night in England, so nobody really wants to do it at the BBC.
It's like a graveyard shift,
sort of,
in a way.
Absolutely.
Because on radio, like nobody wants to do 6 till 10 a.m.
Well, this is like,
because that's like everyone wants to sleep.
This is like 3:30 to 8 a.m.
Oh wow!
Right, so it's like it's a tough shift. But for me, I was so excited.
Why are they broadcasting at that time?
They've, I mean, there's various political reasons, but
wow.
it's actually quite a lot. It's a lot of fun. It's a good quality tournament, and I enjoyed doing it. And I did well enough for them to give me spots on the IPL, which is on at a better time. And at the time, there was a lot of interest in the IPL. There still is, of course. And I also got a little kick out of that because I was one of the only Pakistanis in any way affiliated with the IPL. Me and Azhar Mahmood at the time. And
is that a thing? Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Is that like with the IPL?
Yeah.
Is there like a little bit of like restriction to get Pakistanis on as commentators, etc.?
Absolutely. I mean, if you can't get Pakistani players, you're not going to get Pakistani commentators. It's just not going to happen. Like the only reason it happens is because who I'm doing it for do it externally rather than within the remits of India and the Indian broadcast system. So we do it externally. They get the rights and stuff like that, and it gets a huge audience to its credit. Eventually, COVID happened, and Pakistan came here to play a Test series in lockdown. So my big Test debut for the Test match special was like in literally a cricket stadium where there were no fans. There was no crowd. There were sort of 15 broadcasters.
It was COVID and
because it was COVID.
Audiences couldn't come.
So I got the call.
Football matches like that, and it was so weird.
Very weird.
Bro, I got the call.
No commentary, nothing.
They said to me like, do you want to do these Test matches? To do them, you have to basically live at this cricket ground. The Ageas Bowl in Southampton, it has a Hilton hotel built into it. So into the cricket ground. So off your balcony, you can watch the match. Bro, that's where you got to watch Test cricket. Yeah. That's where you're gonna love it. But they said to me, are you sure you want to do this because it's 16 days away from your family? And I was like, yeah, I can make time for that. I'll be fine. Yeah. So yeah, it was 16 magical days. I'll never forget because at the time everybody was so frustrated. They missed their wives and their children and their husbands. And I'm like, I have no wife or child or husband. Like, I'm very happy to come in here and sit for 16 days. Yeah. The best thing is like...
And get paid for it.
Paid very well. And like now I've got all these cricket commentators. Like Wasim Akram was there. The late Shane Warne was there. God rest his soul. And, like... Normally at a cricket match, after the match is done, they're off. They're going to go have dinner with their friends or go home or whatever it is they want to do. But when you're stuck in a cricket stadium for 16 days, they ain't getting away from me. They're stuck with me. I'm the only entertainment.
They're always going to see you. Yeah.
So for 16 days, I got the best possible like embedding like phase in cricket because we were all just there the whole time.
How did you find it being able to remove any sort of bias that you had?
Well,
with that specific game,
I try to follow the lead set by people, amazing broadcasts like Jonathan Agnew. I've got there, and I was working with people like Michael Vaughan and Sir Alistair Cook and Jimmy Anderson, and all these amazing players who've represented their country. And I feel like sports people who represent their country get ultra patriotic, like they really feel like So I've always a little bit like squinty when I'm like, oh, Pakistan's my team, like But I've learned to be very proud about that. Like, look, I'd rather be honest with you. It's not because I have this like inherent loyalty to Pakistan as a country. Like I always tell people this, right? But I love Pakistan's cricket team before I even knew what countries were, 100%. Right? Like I watched that team in green, the way they played their cricket. It just, it got me, it hooked me, for the same reason that some people live in South London, but they support Man United or Newcastle, right? There we go. Here's one. Man United or Newcastle, just check it. There we go. Okay. Could be Newcastle.
No, but what you're saying is, I think, really smart because I see commentators who are in sports, right? Like Jamie Carragher, for example, and they're commentating on like, what team they've played for.
Yeah.
They've played for Liverpool.
Yeah.
And I watch them as a broadcaster thinking, are they going to slip by saying something that is pro Liverpool and anti another team? That's a very hard skill to do when you're passionate in your personal life.
Well, I was very careful about it, so I was quite conscious of this. Because going into Pakistan-England matches, which is initially what I was thrust into, I was very conscious. But the producers encouraged me to lean on that knowledge of Pakistani cricket that I'd accrued just as a fan. And obviously, you know, when I'm in that position, I'm going to do a lot of research and preparation. Like, I'll never forget the first time, like, I got this praise from Pakistani fans just for pronouncing names correctly. Because, like, you know, we'd heard, like, Fawad Alam for all these years. Fawad Alam. And, like, I come on and I'm like, Fawad Alam. You know? And I'm saying Imran Nazir. And I'm saying Shahid Afridi.
You're giving the umphs and the A's and the rolling of the R's.
It's hard to do when you're in the midst of, like, Jimmy Anderson running in. And Fawad Alam plays him through the covers. What a terrific shot. Misbah Haq in the stands is applauding his team. Like, you have to go in and out, right? And
that's feels one thing that I love about authenticity, because that's authenticity in broadcasting commentary, is if somebody knows how a name is pronounced, I think it's really good to pronounce it like that.
You're touching on in terms of like how refreshing it was when, like, how Pakistani fans were appreciating you for like pronunciation, etc. Yeah. But playing devil's advocate, how refreshing is it being in the commentary box and you've got English, Australian commentators who understand our language so much more now? So, like, for example, growing up, you'd hear like Moin Khan behind the stump mic and you'd hear him say, Andar leke aao, seedha karo. And now
we're still talking about cricket, right?
Yeah.
And now he's saying that during the match,
so you can pick it up from the stump mic, etc. They say certain things. Keeper. But now, like, you hear, for example, like Nasser saying, obviously is the easiest one, but there's other commentators that pick up and they're like, oh, that means that now. Like, they get the language now so much as well. Like, how refreshing is that?
So there was the first piece I did on the highlights, right? So the highlights is a very iconic thing for me because I've got video cassettes in my house, VHS tapes of highlights recorded.
I've watched them so much they don't work.
And I label them and like, you know, there's like the little, you know, you used to have the tab in the VHS. You have to fill it in with like God knows what.
Exactly the same.
So you know, when I got to present that, bro. Like, you know, when you've been taping a program your whole life and now you get to present it. Yeah. So, but the first time I was on it, I wasn't presenting it. I was there to do a segment. While we were on commentary, Pakistan's current team is incredibly diverse. So they don't just speak Urdu. There's Pashto in there. There's Punjabi in there. There's
a bit of English.
A little bit of English occasionally, yeah. But like, so I talked about that on commentary and everybody was fascinated. And for me, it was just a very throwaway detail. But they were like, this is great. We've got to get this on the highlights. I'm like, what am I doing? They're like, oh, we'll give you some video packages. Just translate as they go along. And I'm like, Pashto's a bit, chalo, let's see.
That's a hard language, let's see. To understand Pashto is... that's
yeah, spent time with a lot of cricketers, so they teach Pakistani cricketers. Well, you know, I mean, they got me there. I remember I did the piece. It blew my mind, bro, that people loved it that much. The following day, we were on a golf course, still COVID, so you have to keep miles apart from each other. And I'm on a golf course playing with Azhar Mahmood, and he's kicking my butt because he's a pro athlete, and I'm who I am. And like, I hear somebody yell at me from the distance with a thick Newcastle accent, right? Like, rah, 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 rah. And I was like, oh, what's happening? And Azhar comes over and he's like, that's Mark Wood, bro, England's fast bowler. And he's telling you really enjoyed your piece. I was like, oh, thanks, Mark. I really appreciate it, bud.
But he said it so, like, what, aggressively?
He was like 20 meters away, right? So I couldn't. Eventually, I saw him and he repeated himself.
It's good somebody translated that for you to realize that it was like a good thing rather than
irony. A bad. The irony. He was. I needed somebody to translate him telling me that he enjoyed my translation piece. So like, I remember there were stages in that process where like paperwork happened, like really serious, heavy paperwork. You're talking about ending a relationship with somebody, you know, you were once in love with. It's a big thing, and now you got to get on stage and make 500 people laugh in that same moment. So it goes both ways.
What was that like for you when you initially said the first thing you wanted to do was be a comedian?
Yeah.
What was that conversation like with your parents? Was it like,
yeah,
damag kharab ho gaya?
No, yeah, I'm so lucky.
Doctor bano.
Because I relate in the same way where my mother wasn't able to be like the mother that she needed to be, but my grandmother gave me so much love. And she said, isko kuch bhi nahi ko, isko karne do jo ye karna chahta hai.
Like, you know, I know people talk about rishtas and like, you know, the girl, oh, she doesn't respect, how can I respect this guy? He still lives at home with his parents. It's a thing that they use as a put down. But for me,
in our culture it's different.
You and me, we're going in and out of Urdu and English. Yeah. They go out of Urdu and Japanese. It's phenomenal. I remember telling my mum about it later on the phone. She's like, shadi kar lo, shadi kar lo.
Ghar leke aao.
And I'm like,
tasveer dikha do.
Yeah.
चाय पीनी है?
बिल्कुल पिलाएं भाई.
चाय ये कप आपका फिनिश नहीं हुआ अभी.
मैं आराम से पीता यार. वरना 15 कप हो जाएंगे.
You got is it a thing like down? You know how they say like down that water? Can you please just down the tea?
I don't think I could.
Go on, down
it's
it.
very rich.
Down it. Down it. Down it. Because obviously...
You know what it is? I'm enjoying it.
Okay.
I want to long it out.
And I think chai is not really a thing that should be down.
No, you got to savor it. Every taste, it's like tasting something. Like, you know how like people who drink have wine tasting?
Yeah.
Like chai tasting should absolutely be a thing. Anila, you agree? Yeah, see, Anila agrees. A chai tasting, I could see that. I'd go to one of those.
Chai tasting's a vibe.
You could be hosting that, bro.
Chai. Yeah.
I'm telling you, at the Rich Mix.
Yeah.
Mim Shake. Chai tasting at the Rich Mix. £7, no latecomers.
Listen, I think that would be the only thing that if I invite my family to, they would come without even thinking. Because every Pakistani loves drinking chai.
Don't they come out? They must have all seen your films and stuff.
I mean, that was the one. This is the only respect I have from my family. Is that I done a film which touched on like British Pakistanis. Before that, he's just doing
in a very positive way.
Yeah, but he's just doing whatever. ये बस ये ऐसे कर रहा है कोई काम शाम कैमरा के आगे
रिश्ता कहाँ से आएगा
ये क्या फिल्म कर रहा है मुझे समझ नहीं आ रही
like, देखो ना फिल्म में मुझे रिश्ता मिल गया
then you tell him oh yeah Jemima Khan like casted me in a film oh Jemima oh Imran oh and it's like oh wow okay
what was that like for you when you said you said the first thing you wanted to do was be a comedian
yeah
what was that conversation like with your parents was it like
yeah
damag kharab ho gaya
no yeah I'm so lucky I'm the youngest child right and my brother was very responsible you know took over the family business my sister was very academic she became a very respected psychologist wow. All of my nieces and nephews are very academic they're all so focused on that and I was academic too you know I went to university I did a master's and I went to drama school.
You strike me as a smart intellectual.
Alhamdulillah.
No, because you can
a great actor.
No. There's a difference, man. There's a difference between intellectual creative and maybe not so intellectual creative, but they're still smart. But you seem like the smart.
Well, you're very kind, bro.
What was their reaction?
Yeah, I'm just very lucky. Every time I wanted to do something in my life, whether it's in my professional life or my personal life, my mom and dad always just said, "Go do whatever you want." They've been like, you know, I think they've like I was a very late in life child. My father was 50. When I was born, and my mum wasn't a million miles younger than that. So they both referred to me as like a gift from Allah, right? Which is it's a lovely thing, right? Even now, like it's a strange thing because there's a huge age gap, right? And as your parents get older, you know, you almost turn into their parent a little bit as they get older. Man. And like nowadays, a lot of my life is, you know, I like having a flexible work life because it allows me to do things like doctor's appointments and take them to, you know, rishtedar ke ghar, vagera. Like, and even take them on holiday. Like, my favorite thing every year is to take my mom and dad on holiday. Wow. So, and it's just the three of us, and it never feels like a chore. It never feels like I've built this lovely relationship with them where we have shared interests. We all love cricket. We all love cinema of like the Far East and stuff like that. Like I've always been obsessed with Japan, so I'm kind of like we're watching Japanese films. You're gonna watch anime whether you like it or not. And through gritted teeth, I got them into it. But like,
I feel like you need that. Like, given you've achieved so much and you've accomplished so much, had you not had supportive parents saying you can't do that or don't do that, I don't think you would be where you are. Because I relate in the same way where my mother wasn't able to be like the mother that she needed to be, but my grandmother gave me so much love. And she said, isko kuch bhi nahi ko, isko karne do jo ye karna chahta hai. So it was like, he can go on and achieve what he wants. And I'm so glad I had someone in my family doing that rather than blocking you from chasing an aspiration that you have in your head, for example.
I think people do it for, like, they have noble intentions when they do that. They just they're thinking what's best for you. I made some very questionable choices in my private life, which, you know, in Urdu you say, jisko maine pashtaya. Lekin, like, they never stopped me at any point. You know, they were like, look, this is what he's a grown-up person. Even when I was young and I wanted to pursue things or, you know, even a lifestyle that maybe they didn't initially agree with, like they got on board with it. And like now I love that. I've never ever, you know, people go through a rebellious phase or like, oh, my parents and I want to move out. You know, I know people talk about rishtas and like, you know, the girl, oh, she doesn't respect, how can I respect this guy? He still lives at home with his parents. It's a thing that they use as a put down. But for me,
but in our culture is different.
Well, I don't know, yeah.
Don't you think?
In my I've been in that sphere and I've certainly heard that comment like, oh, you still live with your parents? And I'm like, yeah, I would not dare to abandon my parents in their old age.
But this is
now they need me their most.
It's a cultural thing, right?
Absolutely.
If you're Pakistani or you're South Asian, there's a level of like not leaving your parents in a care home.
there's
and not
that.
leaving your parents to live by themselves.
I think Pakistani people in Britain, like, to varying degrees, have assimilated. So, you know, like, the culture in Britain is very much of, like, you know, once you turn a certain age, you try and create your own life and you move away from your family, and, you know, they learn to fend for themselves, so to speak. But, like, I don't think it's a universal thing. And what have we got? Something like 1.8 million British Pakistanis in this country. Like, it's very hard to, you know, sort of...
Yeah, you can't speak and generalize for all of that.
But, like, you're right. I think there is a little bit of that, like, families stay together. But, like, there's different reasons for that. Like, for me, my primary reason, like, my principal reason, alhamdulillah, you know, work is good. Allah's been kind. I could do various things with my life and go... I've always fantasized about just moving to Japan. Right, I've always wanted to do that.
For this conversation, you need to take a holiday to Japan, because it's come up again about 3 times.
I went last year. I'll tell you about it in a sec. But, like, the only reason I wouldn't do that, and the only reason I would stay put and committed, is because I want to be with them. And it's not like I'm obliged or I need to, or like society says I should. It's because I genuinely want to. Like, it makes me really happy to make their lunch. It makes me really happy to take them out.
Do you understand my point? That it's a cultural thing that's embedded in you without you even knowing.
I've seen people who, from my culture, who don't do that, yeah. You know, last year I was thinking about when I wanted to go to Japan. So it was my lifelong dream to go to Japan. It's always felt like this impossible dream. And I remember it was my birthday, and I was kind of sulking. I always sulk on my birthday. Like, you know, get older, and, like, I've got a grey now, and, like, you know, you think like that. And Mum's like, just go. Why don't you go somewhere? Go do something fun. And I'm like, yeah, what do you mean? She's like, go abroad. Go do something fun. I'm like, all right. And then I literally that night booked a ticket to Japan. Worked out that the visa is like an on-arrival situation. And I just turned up the next day. And she's like, you went to Japan? I'm like, you said go. I said, I thought you meant like Spain or something, you know, not the other side of the world. And I'm like, Mom, you told me to chase my dream. I'm in Tokyo. I'll bring you back a Pokemon.
I love this now. Anytime I think of Japan, I'm going to think of you.
Bro, it's the best.
Because when people love a country, it makes me look at the country in a different way. Like,
I grew up with like video games. I grew up with like Street Fighter was always a big thing to me. I like anime, but I prefer manga. I'm a reader, right? So like I like manga and I like reading all of that.
Can you speak the language? Because I've heard like, there's a stereotype there that over there they speak minimal English. You have to get your phone out, Google Translate. They're not very receptive to English people.
I was very keen to immerse myself in the culture while I could. But oddly enough, when I went to the mosque, and this surprises people, but there's many mosques in Tokyo, I met a lot of English speakers and actually Urdu speakers. It was great.
Where? In Tokyo?
In Tokyo.
No way.
I went to a wrestling show.
Urdu sound different though.
Zabardast Urdu bolte. It's just weird because you and me are going in and out of Urdu and English. Yeah. They go out of Urdu and Japanese. It's phenomenal.
What does that
Give us a sample.
like?
Bro, give us a sample. You must have a sample.
Sumimasen, kore kudasai. Nahi aa rahi hai na, ek second. Kore kudasai. Like, it's like that. It's mad, bro. So
I have never heard that in my entire life.
Bro, I went to the wrestling.
Japanese person speaking Urdu.
I went to wrestling, right? I love wrestling. I've grown up loving Japanese wrestling and most wrestling, to be fair. Like, I was a kid, I got into it and I never let it go. And I went to this Japanese wrestling show. Buying tickets for things in Japan is exceptionally difficult because you've got to go to a kiosk and it's in Japanese and you got to do this and it's very hard. But I went through that rigmarole, got myself a ticket, turned up to the show by myself at the Tokyo Dome. So there's like 60,000 people there and stuff. And I happened to bump into like this Pakistani Japanese girl who was there, right? So I've managed to find myself another Pakistani person who likes wrestling and is from Japan. Wow. I remember telling my mum about it later on the phone. She's like, "Shadi kar lo, shadi kar lo." And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, ain't like that. But she was great and she gave me all this guidance. She's like, you got to do the Mario Kart thing, which is like where you go kart through the middle of the city. I did.
Oh, see, so many TikToks.
I've seen that. Yeah,
great content, yaar. Content. Zabardast content. So yeah, it's a vibe, man. Tokyo's amazing.
Yeah, it looks absolutely amazing.
You've probably seen, even growing up as well, I'm going to put you on the spot and it's probably hard. Favorite cricketing moment ever?
Oh, it's easy.
So
easy for me. 2021, which wasn't a final, but it was India-Pakistan. This was the first time Pakistan beat India in a World Cup ever. Yeah. Men's or women's. And I got to be on commentary for that final moment, right? So, and it was, again, another smashing win. They did it by 10 wickets. It's captured, somebody at the BBC captured me doing the commentary. And like, I immediately was like, thank you very much. And I'll put that on my YouTube and all that kind of stuff. It was huge. That by far, like watching Pakistan, Babar and Rizwan beat India by 10 wickets in an ICC. I never thought in my wildest dreams, I didn't imagine that was possible. So I was very happy. I was so happy I took the whole team out for dinner that night. And it wasn't like I was swimming in cash either. And these are cricketers. Like Carlos Brathwaite was there. I remember Abhishek Junjunwala was there. He was the Indian commentator. He was a great sport. And we went out for dinner, and like, you know, it only the following day when I looked at my like bank statement, I was like, just chill out next time, Aatif. Just chill out.
put the brakes on sometimes. I love a T20.
Oh yeah,
like they're amazing.
That's the Pakistani side of you coming out. Pakistanis love white ball cricket
and the chai.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, you got to drink some.
Bismillah. Well, that's very nice.
Tastes alright.
Yeah, did you make it?
I did actually. Yeah.
Did you really?
I actually
very
did.
Good.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
Since you got that pass that goes around your neck that gets you everywhere, was there anyone that you were taken back by? So like maybe someone that you saw growing up, like Shane Warne, and then you got to have that interaction with him. Was there anyone that really moved you?
It happens on a regular basis, bro. Like I get moved all the time. Like I never get negative feedback from our producer, but the one time he had negative feedback from me was when I was with Ian Bell, English batter. And I said to him after, I always ask him, like, how do I do? And he's like, you're fine, you were great, you were brilliant. I was like, come on. And I pressed him.
Was this young Ian Bell, like, just coming to the Ashes?
This is a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago. So Ian, I mean, he was just in the commentary box with me, right? So we were just commentating a game of cricket together. And he said, the producer said to me, well, if you must know, like, at times it did feel a little bit like you'd won a contest to hang out with Ian Bell. And I was like, that's what I do. Like, I'm a fan of these people. So I do rein it in a little bit, but, like, I never lose, like, inside me is just this kid, is that 8-year-old kid who just loves the game of cricket because of the vibes, and he doesn't know about countries, he doesn't know about politics, doesn't know about tensions and geographical issues. He just loves the game of cricket. I can't let that kid die.
Yeah, but does your dad watch cricket?
Loves it.
So aap aur baap dono cricket, you can watch it together.
In my house, my dad watches cricket, my mum watches cricket, my sister watches cricket, my brother watches cricket. All of my nieces and my nephew watches cricket. All of us have played some form of cricket. Most of our relatives who don't like cricket, we don't speak to. No, that's not true. But like very rare. Eid, you got to know. Eid milna padta. But like we adore cricket in my house. Yeah. Everybody loves it.
I think that's something that I say that to my friends here. Like growing up as British Pakistani, cricket comes first. Like for me, cricket came first before everything.
What, before football?
Yeah, so like growing up, like my dad that was our thing. We'd watch together, whether it was in silence or talking to each other. I'd watch absolutely anything with him cricket related.
Yeah, we still watch football too.
But my brother wasn't as glued into it almost.
But I like that element of like male bonding through watching sports. I know it sounds a bit like what arty-farty, whatever, but I like that element of it, because say if I was to have a child in the future, I would try and incorporate them things for you to be able to do something together, which doesn't require talking as much.
It doesn't have to be male anymore. Like I mean, this is the thing. Women's cricket is like on like this is so cheesy, but like I always wonder. Like the one thing I've sort of missed out on in life is like having a family, right? But like if I always liked to daydream sometimes about having like a daughter and playing cricket with her and taking her to cricket practice and all that kind of stuff.
Yaar, daydream kyun karna hai? Let's get you married.
Yeah, we can't let my mum see this program.
Are they aunties and stuff? Yeah, where they give you the question of like Shadi kab ho rahi hai?
Well, you know, I've been in that arena before and it wasn't successful as it goes, but like.
Which is life.
Absolutely.
As a comedian, you must be able to navigate around it well, though.
Yeah, it was great. It built a whole show around it. It was wonderful. But at the same time,
I love what you do, because any trauma or any difficulty that you have, you can use your art form to kind of let out or use it as catharsis in a way. I know some people don't.
No, you're right.
But a lot of stand-up comedians, they do that. Like,
you're right, but there's a flip side to that. And the flip side is that regardless of how you're feeling, right? So you could be like... It's no secret. I've been through a divorce, right? So, like, I remember the day I got. I don't wish a divorce on anybody. It's a miserable process. It's paperwork. It's like I became a stand-up comic, so I don't have to do paperwork. But here I was. So like, I remember there were stages in that process where like paperwork happened, like really serious, heavy paperwork. You're talking about ending a relationship with somebody you know you were once in love with. It's a big thing, and now you got to get on stage and make 500 people laugh in that same moment. So it goes both ways.
That's hard.
I understand my craft. I know how to do it. Some days are harder than others, but you never forget that it's a privilege to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're blessed because you've been able to do so many different things and work in so many different areas, navigating so many job titles.
And I got to be on the Vodcast, man.
You got to be on
This is it.
Chai.
This is getting at the top of the LinkedIn page, which I don't have.
If you can remember, I know it's a hard ask, but in sports commentary mode, can we get a little rendition of what you sound like if it was the game that you was broadcasting?
Let's say it up for you. Say final over, 3 balls to go.
You're on Pakistani commentary, Urdu commentary. Okay. So I've not done Urdu commentary before, believe it or not. No, that's not true. I have once. Okay, let's give this a go. हसन अली भाग के आ रहे हैं जो एक शानदार गेंदबाज हैं. उन्होंने बॉल दी और बहुत जबरदस्त लेंथ पे और उसने एज कर दी और कैच लिया गया. एक और विकेट गिर गई है इंडिया की. पाकिस्तान जीतने वाले हैं चैंपियंस ट्रॉफी 2017 की. क्या जबरदस्त मुकाबला. उन्होंने आज फतेह पाई है इस मुकाबले में. पाकिस्तान दुनिया के वो चैंपियंस ट्रॉफी के चैंपियंस हैं.
Spot on. You're effortless. Like, you're so natural. Effortless.
I'm just trying to think of things, but yeah.
Nah, you're great. If there was a message that you would want to give to, say, the younger demographic of like South Asians who are watching this, what would you like to say to them?
Don't put too much pressure on your dreams. Enjoy your dreams. I meet a lot of people who want to do stand-up comedy, for example, and they always ask me, how do you make it as a stand-up comedian, right? And I always say, you're not going to make it as a stand-up comedian. Enjoy your stand-up comedy. Like, you might get to a point of like you're on TV and you're touring the world and everybody knows you and you're Dave Chappelle or whatever, but the likelihood is that won't happen. If you're enjoying what you do, you won't worry too much about the hierarchy. Yeah, be tactical, make plans, think about your career, but make sure you never forget that you do this because you love to do it. Retain that love.
It's been an absolute pleasure. A massive thank you to Aatif Nawaz for joining us on Aik Cup Chai Crossing Cultures. My name is Mim Sheikh. This is my co-host Ali, and make sure you tune in next week to Independent Urdu, where we will be catching up with another special talented guest. See you next time. On time, you know?
Spot on.
I didn't see the
You
clock.
finished right on the zero.
You hit that at 0-0-0-0.
Lovely.
That's a broadcaster. Not anyone can do
You
that.
couldn't even see the time.
You didn't even look at it.
You couldn't see the time.
It's like a feeling that you know when the time's up to just stop. I like it.
6 o'clock, here's the news. Dun, dun,
I
dun.
think that's everything.
Chai.